Welcome to Trace Amigos podcast number 2, episode number 2. Today we're going to do a little review of the Notre Dame game and then head into the McNeese game, which hopefully will end a lot better. But my name is Matt Fulmer, coached for 10 years, and then opened up an insurance office here in Hallsville, Texas. Independent agency here with Rollo, like Seth and Mark, and enjoy being able to give back to the community and volunteer and this job. That's one of the main reasons I did it, is for the flexibility of schedule to do that and be at my kids' activities and things of that nature. We were down in Jacksonville, Texas yesterday, home of the McCown boys that played quarterback at A&M, and I think that school was built in 1957, and it looks like it hasn't been updated since. So taxpayers in Jacksonville need to spend a little money, help those poor kids out. But I'm going to punt it to Mark and let him introduce himself.
Hey, they did upgrade the Tomato Bowl that was built in the 30s, and it looks a lot better now. So,
it looks great, but they use that for 3 hours for about 10 Fridays a year, and the kids are in that school about 200 days a year. So,
yeah, I get it. I don't know. I took too many losses over there at the Tomato Bowl back in the day, so too bad for them. Hate it for them. Yeah, I'm just kidding, Jacksonville. Love you guys. I would really like to see the Indians back in the thick of things. My name is Mark Brown, coached for 20 years in high school. Did some work at University of North Texas in college. Selling insurance now. I'm thinking, maybe we need to get Connor Wegman a umbrella policy so he'll feel more comfortable in the pocket. Whatever we can do on our end to help this cause, I'm all for. Hard game to watch at times, but there was a lot of positives when you take the emotion of the final score out of it. There were really a lot of positives. So I guess we'll talk about those today. But just a beautiful, bright, not really that bright morning in East Texas. But every day is a great day in East Texas.
There you go. Seth, tell us about yourself, bud.
My name is Seth Drennan. I grew up around Gilmer, out west of Gilmer, went to Harmony. Coach for Mark, you can't hate me too much. I'm not a full blood.
Well, start with Harmony, finish with it's so kind of around Gilmer.
Yeah. So I went to high school at went K-12 at Harmony. Then I did go to A&M. And changed my major about 4 times, and ended up going into the coaching afterwards. Coached for 16 years, various East Texas schools, Pine Tree, Pittsburgh, Overton, and back at Harmony, where I was from. Got out of coaching in 2022 and opened up my own insurance agency with Rollo in 2023. And here we are now. I've been a film junkie not my whole life, my whole coaching career. And that didn't stop when coaching ended. I just quit watching the film for whoever I was coaching and started watching A&M related film or any college football related film whatsoever.
This game in particular, anytime you lose a close game like this, watching film can be just heart wrenching because you see so many opportunities that could have went your way.
We're going to talk about them. Yeah. So, hey, I just want to take a second and brag about this group. This group has 6 state championship rings, averaging 2 per coach. I mean, what a group right here, right?
Yeah. Great group.
Yeah. Why are y'all bringing the averages down?
Hey, here's the deal, Seth. I think for every ring you get, you lose more hair. So in the long run, we may come out better on this deal, Seth.
Yeah. Well, so for those that don't know, Mark has 5, Coach or Matt Fulmer has 1, and I have 0. But that's statistics for you. Hey, it averages out to 2 per coach. Hey, looky there. Now, granted, I would like to relate it to the SEC. I spent most of my career coaching at Vanderbilt, Kentucky, South Carolina, and one stop at Auburn for 1 year. But it was not a year with Cam Newton. So anyway, but
I get it. I coached with Nick Saban in most of my career.
I was about to say y'all were at Alabama, so yeah.
Well,
But anyway, there's a lot of experience here. I did want to point that out to you guys, or to the listeners, that y'all have seen some high level football at the high school level. It's crazy how 5 state championships rings. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, he's had a good time, but we're going to just try to make it quick on the Notre Dame game. I put the good, the bad, and the ugly. So for me, the good, watching that game, I was very, very impressed with our offensive line. I know you watch it, and for the common viewer, you're thinking, man, we didn't rush very well. We didn't move the ball down the field effectively. But as Seth will go into detail, I'm sure, more, because he's the film junkie. But I went back and watched some of it as well. And man, the holes were there. We had some opportunities, especially the first drive, to really gash them on some gap plays and even some zone plays, and we only gave up 1 sack. And so I think compared to the last couple of years of what we've seen from the offensive line, I was very, very excited. I know it stinks we lost Naboo, the kid that started at center, but I think the kid that came in that transferred in from Utah did a good job. And so I think we're going to be okay on that offensive line. And as any coach will tell you, the offensive line is one area in particular that the longer the season goes on, theoretically, they should get better and better and better. And so it was really exciting to see where they started out for me personally. What was y'all's good from this game?
Well, I mean, I would say the same thing. I thought the offensive line was very impressive. Not only did Naboo go out, but the guy that graded the highest in the game was his replacement. And that says a lot, because center is not easy. You know, Matt, in an offensive scheme, the center is kind of as important as the quarterback with getting calls right, especially on blocking schemes and things like that at pre-snap. So that's a huge positive. I thought the running game itself was kind of positive. I mean, I don't think they used it as much as me or Elko or any other defensive coach would have liked them to, but I saw some positives there against a really good Notre Dame front seven, which, by the way, I would think I think that's the strength of Notre Dame's team, is their front seven. They're pretty phenomenal. I know Seth sent us a clip of the back missing where he was supposed to go on a counter F, and there was another counter F where the play side linebacker absolutely destroyed it in the hole.
Yeah, that tight end, and he transferred from Fresno State. I don't think he's ever been hit that hard at Fresno State. That linebacker from Notre Dame went downhill in a hurry.
Yes. The only thing that hits that hard in California is the government. So for sure, yeah. But I thought the D line was I thought it was going to be a strength. I felt like they played well. I think that Matt, in the same way, D-line takes a while to bring on, and they're going to get better. I thought Nick at the end, playing defensive end, and all he did was he kind of wreaked havoc. I would have really liked to see Shamar do the same thing. I think he did at times, but I think that group's going to get better. And that I thought Notre Dame's line, we thought that was going to be a weakness for them, but as young as they were, I think Elko might have said it or someone said it, yeah, they're young, but all Notre Dame does is put their linemen in the NFL. And a bunch of those guys are going to end up in the NFL. They're really good. They're really talented.
Well, and you can talk about this, Mark. Everybody's like, we claim to have the best D-line in the nation. We didn't have any sack. They game planned for our D-line. Everything was quick, out of his hands, quick outs, quick stop routes, swing passes. They didn't want that ball in his hands for more than 3 seconds. They knew what was on that line.
Look, statistically, without the sacks, look at everything else, the yards gained and that kind of stuff, the points they scored. Our D-line played well enough for us to win big time, and I think our D-line is going to get better, and I think our D-line is going to wreak havoc with teams that don't have O-lines as talented as Notre Dame's. Plus, you have to remember in Elko's scheme, a lot of times you've got a D lineman that's long sticking to free up a free runner. And we got only once did we get a deep that we confused him with an A-gap bluff that we got Turner free, and he got rid of it but he got hit right as he was throwing it. It was a bad pass. There were other bad passes.
And you know this. Yeah, and you know this too. sacks are great, but anytime you can get a hit on a quarterback, whether he got rid of it or not, he's remembering that every time he gets the ball in his hands.
I mean, yeah, because Connor was remembering it before the game. So I get that.
Easy, killer, easy.
Look, it is what it is.
Shades of Adazio. Still there.
I will say this, let's not leave out special teams. I thought our punter did a phenomenal job. There are two great punters in that game, but I think our punting game is going to be good, and that's a good defensive team that's going to rely on run game and defense to win games. They're going to need a good punter to flip the field, and I thought he did a wonderful job at that. And I think Terry Bussey returning punts is going to be special before it's over.
I agree. Seth, what's your good for this week?
Before I start with the good, I got my rant about scheduling, and then we'll go to the good. All right. I don't like scheduling Notre Dame, period. I didn't like scheduling Clemson. I didn't like scheduling Oregon. Thankfully, it got taken off. We don't need to schedule a top 10 team outside of conference. To me, that is silly. All right. That is fans, season ticket holders, and athletic directors, non-coaches making that call, my opinion. Okay. I get to have my opinion. You can argue with me all you want. The season ticket holders, when the Arkansas game got moved to Jerry World, raised a wall-eyed fit about the home slate. And that's what pressured the ADs to start scheduling top 10 opponents at home. We are in the SEC. We don't need to play a top 10 opponent outside of conference, okay? And I'm frustrated at if we go 9-3, let's say things go really well and we end up 9-3, and then Ole Miss goes 10-2, who do you think's going to the playoffs? Well, guess who Ole Miss's Power 5 non-conference is? Wake Forest. Very different, okay? And I got a list here.
I mean, they got gold helmets. They got gold helmets, Seth. They do have gold helmets.
Yeah, they got they're playing great value Notre Dame. Okay, Mississippi State plays Arizona State. Kentucky plays Louisville. That's a rival. That's still not Notre Dame. That's still not Clemson. That's not Oregon. Auburn plays Cal. Oklahoma plays Houston and Tulane. That's that's two better teams. That's still not Notre Dame. All right. These are teams that are falling clearly below that tier of talent that exists in the SEC. And Notre Dame has that talent level. Vanderbilt plays Virginia Tech, and they won.
You hurt Mark's feelings somehow, Mark. What team?
Why is the Sips left off? They play powerhouse Colorado State. I can't believe you let
They do play Michigan this week, Mark.
They do play Michigan this week. Yeah, they do play Michigan this week.
Now,
so
I'll
give them credit. Yeah. Now, I think that Michigan game was scheduled, to be fair, I think that Michigan game was scheduled long before they joined the SEC. You know what I mean? So I think if they could have their go back, I think they would take it off.
Hey, Harbaugh and his film guy are gone, so the Sips have a pretty good chance.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, I don't like it. I get what the fans think, and I get what the AD thinks, but I'm like, hey, if you need to generate some revenue, let's get George Strait there again next summer. How about that? And then let's play Purdue, okay, or somebody like that. That is a Power 5 conference team that does show up and play ball, but is not going to beat you up. Because I've gotten word from people I know that we're pretty dinged up post Notre Dame. So now we're going to have to, I hope we can get fully healed up going into the Florida week in 2 weeks. I just don't like it. I don't like it at all. That's the coach in me, though. And I know if we could probably get Coach Elko in here, he would probably have been like, yeah, it would have been nice to not open with Notre Dame for my very first game.
Jackie Sherrill said it before the game. They asked Jackie Sherrill about it. One of the things he said, and this is key, because I think this Jackie's my guy, but he said, he didn't really like playing those kind of games because in those games, you come out of camp, you just have to go with what you believe in. And he said, when you play someone like a McNeese or someone like you're saying, somebody from a Power 5 conference that's not, Notre Dame, then you get to play lots of people and kind of mix and match those games. And it helps you early to find out what you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you look at high school, the high school ball and NFL, they scrimmage other teams, so they get that film beforehand. Even if it is a controlled scrimmage, they get some real film, live bullet reps, and they can figure out, oh, this guy don't have it, or oh, this guy, like everything is exposed in those live bullet reps. And when it's on a national televised event, is nobody even watches, preseason games as well. So
I remember coaching a kid named Kip Lewis, and our defensive coordinator was like, he's a sophomore. We need to keep him on the JV. We went to a scrimmage. He had 13 plays in the scrimmage. He had 13 tackles, 3 for a loss. And I was like, you going to leave that guy on the JV still? He's at Oklahoma now.
He's starting at Oklahoma if I'm not. Yeah.
Is he?
So my point is, you're right. I think we're going to get to see a lot more players play this week against McNeese, and that's only going to help this team see who they have and who can play.
Yeah. So now we'll move on to the bad. I think we can all agree. For me, the bad is.
I'm sorry, Matt. I forgot to say the good. I don't want to be totally negative.
Oh, okay.
I got to go through my good real quick. I'll echo what they said about the O-line. Moss looks like a real deal SEC running back. He's just he has some awareness issues, to use a Madden term. Awareness not 99. Missing the counter def and out in routes. He looks a little lost there, and I think that's where we miss Owens big time. Owens was a good guy to put in space and routes. And my biggest question mark coming into the game was tight end, I thought the tight end unit looked pretty solid. Like Trey Watson, like you said, he got caught off guard. I ain't seen a linebacker like that before. But outside of, that one play, they never popped off film to me as somebody who looked lost, looked like they didn't belong. Him and Thor, they look like they could be okay, and they got very little experience playing at this level. So very excited for that group moving forward.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. In fact, I think we talked yesterday, Seth. There was I think it was about the second or third play of the game when we overthrew a stop route on the outside, that the tight end had a stop route right over the center, and he was wide open. It would have been super easy check down for Wigman. And I don't know what he's coached to read, maybe outside in or whatever, but that guy was there for him. And I think tight ends are only going to get better. But the bad for me was just lack of explosive plays. And like I said, this is why you love watching film, but you hate watching film. You go back and watch film, and everybody's hammering on the offensive play calls. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there was multiple plays where receivers were open down the field, corner routes, things of that nature were open, and we just did not hit them. And then there were some run plays that could have been really explosive. We just weren't patient to follow our pullers or things of that nature. And so, but once again, those guys, I guarantee you, are being hammered in the film room about all that. And hopefully you hope as a coach that kid has the right mindset to want to improve and take those coaching points and get better. And hopefully we see that this week. But my bad was just lack of explosive plays. So I think, Seth, your bad was obviously scheduling, I would say there.
Yeah, I would say Klein and Elko's game plan, it nearly worked, crazy like a fox. But looking back on it, I think they both. And I don't know. It's a chicken and egg argument. Was it Elko saying, Klein, we're going to be like this, or was Klein saying, I think this is how we win? I'm not in those meetings, so I don't know how those go. But I know it was conservative, and I've talked to people I know that have some connections here and there, and that was the plan. The plan was, don't mess up. Now, they think that the people that makes the most mistakes in a game like this loses. And technically he was right. But when you have a conservative game plan to limit mistakes and you still make mistakes, then that is a double-edged sword there. And so I'm very interested to see Klein improve one way or the other. I don't know if it was Elko throttling him back or he was throttling. Either way, I'm ready to see him. I felt like after watching hours of K-State film that I was watching a guy call an offense differently. You know what I mean? Because he just didn't look like himself from K-State. And I think it has something to do with the fact that, Connor is more of a pro-style quarterback, and he's his 2 years as an OC, he's had dual threat guys. And they need to, if it's going to be, there's a numbers game at play here. If you've got a quarterback and he has an NFL arm talent and he can make every throw and he does not miss, then you're playing 11 versus 11. Think like Michael Penix from Washington last year. When you watched him play, he didn't miss. His arm was the 11th man on offense. And then when you don't have that arm, and I think that's what we were banking on. Like, well, Connor's a lot like that. He's going to, and if you watch 2023 film, he is that. If you don't have that arm, you can say this guy's an NFL like transcendent arm talent. Then you better have a guy who can use his legs as well. And in the modern game to make people play 11 on 11. Or the other option is you have a wide receiver that commands two guys. And we don't have none of that. So the option is we need to make Connor run more until his arm either turns it back into what it was, or that's just who we are going forward.
Well, and I think we talked about this, Seth. That was the one thing I was impressed with Notre Dame in the fourth quarter. They just realized that, you know what, we have got to figure out a way just to score another touchdown. One more touchdown is going to win us this game, and they went to quarterback lead. They didn't run it the first three quarters, but all of a sudden the fourth quarter, when they needed that score, they said, we're going to get real simple. We're going to put 11 on 11, hat on hat, and we're just going to go and get down there and score that one touchdown, get out of here with a win. That may not be what he wants to do the whole season. That may not be their offense the rest of the season. But for that game at that point, that's what they decided to do. And I think I admire a coach that's willing to get real basic and get real simple if that's what it takes to get out of a game with a W.
Absolutely.
Mark, what was your bad?
I mean, honestly, you can't. This game hinged on the quarterback. Whether you want to call it play calling or scheme or whatever, Connor did not look comfortable in the pocket. He had happy feet, which is the worst thing you can have as a quarterback. It's hard to throw the deep ball if you're not going to, get to your stop, sit in the pocket. There were comfortable pockets that he made look uncomfortable. That was the bad. How you fix that, Connor can fix it, but I'll just tell you from years of experience, that's a hard one to fix.
I would agree with you. It's a hard one to fix. I'm not ready to give up on a kid after one game, but it is a hard one to fix, I think. And that's the one thing. I was sitting at my house watching with my kids, and I was like, what are we doing? And I made the statement. I said, he can't get his feet set. He's constantly moving his feet, and they just look like hot potato the whole time. And that's kind of what you were talking about there, Mark, is he did not look comfortable. He did not plane his feet to be able to throw. The first interception in particular for me, I knew right then we were in trouble because you overthrow a 6'6" receiver that's open. He was open. And you overthrow him because you're throwing off your back foot and not stepping into your throw. So we'll see. I was really impressed. I got to give Wigman credit. Most 19, 20-year-old kids are not going to go into the room knowing you're going to get hammered by reporters and knowing you've been getting bashed on social media for 48 hours and all those things. So I got to give the kid credit for being willing to step up to the mic and take the questions and take the heat. But at the end of the day, that's great, but you got to produce. So we'll see what happens. I hope he does. I like the kid. He seems like a good kid. But we'll see what happens. So the ugly for me, since we're on this topic, that was my ugly was Wigman. Like you said, Seth, I think he's shown all the promise. He was a 5-star coming out of high school. We all know what he did in high school. We all saw when he was healthy what he did last year. So that was sure enough ugly, and I hated it for him. I hated it for the team. But luckily we got McNeese this week. Hopefully he can get more comfortable in the pocket. And I agree with you, Mark. I think that's why the good was the O-line for me. A lot of times he had a great pocket, but and I get it. The O-line we've had the last 5-6 years, that could give you PTSD bad if you play behind that O-line.
And Matt, I will say this: let's not forget Connor's last snap before Notre Dame was where he takes a shot to his lower leg
as he's stepping into a throw.
Right, and it's going to take a little bit to overcome that, but I think you can.
Yeah.
And hopefully McNeese will be the medicine he needs to, and he knows he needs to work on it. All those things should work in his favor.
Yeah. What was
taking the right steps, like y'all said? Like he's doing the right things. It's still a bottom line game. You know what I mean? Like you can say all the right things, and that's good because usually that's a precursor to doing the right things as well, but it doesn't necessarily lead to it. I would say one more thing that was ugly was the pre-snap penalties, especially early, especially how he did it. And offensive line jumping is inexplicable, but that was Ja'Day Walker at receiver.
Just get lined up. It doesn't matter. We're running quarterback sneak. It does not matter.
Throwing his hands up at the sideline while the ball is deep. I
had a dollar.
I would say two things. One, if Ja'Day, just line up. If you know it's quarterback sneak, just stay set. If there was a coach on the sideline yelling at him about his alignment on something that simple, then he needs to be fired. I mean, I'm just you don't do that. Like, and it looked to me like that might have been something going on because he's looking at our sideline and throwing his hands up while the ball's being, anyway. That was absolutely, and that, I mean, who knows? Like, you know as well as I do, in a rock fight like this, that early drive, you go down there and punch that in. That's a whole different ball game.
It's no different than on the 2-minute drive. When you know kill, that means we're lining up. Just get lined up. I don't care if you're on the line, off the line. Does not matter. I'm snapping the ball and throwing it straight down. It does not matter.
Simple. Yeah. I will say that with Connor, though, you know, this I didn't realize this. Somebody told me this, and it was kind of eye-opening. He's been in our program for a long time and been highly touted. And it's not just us. I mean, like, third-party mock draft people have had him as a sneaky first-rounder. Pro Football Focus wrote an article on July 25th saying, we think he could be the first overall quarterback taken. That's not an Aggie outlet, you know? That's what's crazy about, I mean, so he's only this was his 8th start in his career, which is kind of mind-blowing because I feel like he's been here forever, you know?
Well, he's been here for 3 years. You got to remember his freshman year, he played towards the end because everybody else got injured. Then last year he was a starter, got to play the first 4 games, got injured. And so now, you know, he's been here for 3 years, but he has never been able to play a whole season. And that's, you know, if anything got Jimbo fired, it was the fact he couldn't keep a daggum quarterback healthy. So
he started at Florida State too. The warning signs were there, but, you know, it is what it is. So the other thing that's the ugly is the wide receiver room. I hate to just be like a talent, but we don't have a wide receiver one. We got a bunch of 3s, and they would be great in a 2 or a 3 role. For sure, great at a 3 role, but we don't have one. Now we might with Jabray Barber, because that was all I heard was how good he was. And granted, I ain't seen him play a down in the SEC, so he may come out and look like those guys. But and then the other thing is, you know, Bussy has the potential to be special, but this is his 3rd week of pure offensive practice as a true freshman. Last year he had just played 1 game at Timpson. So, I mean, it's like relying on him to just come out and be that was a fallacy as well. I mean, freshmen are freshmen for a reason, unless you're a tackle at Notre Dame, you know, but
Okay, well, let's move on to the next game against McNeese. Man, it's kind of hard to find anything on them. I went back and watched a little bit. They played Tarleton and Southern so far this year. Lost to Tarleton in a close game, beat Southern in a close game. And they were 0-10 last year, or 0-12, whatever it was. They were 0 for last year, didn't win a game. From what it looked like to me on film, they run a 4-2-5. So we should be really familiar with that because, as Mark talked about last week, you know, that's kind of Elko's mantra there with the nickel. And so we shouldn't have any problems lining up to it. They've got a linebacker that's a preseason All-American for FCS, lower classification, but don't look really all that strong up front, giving up about 500 yards a game last year. This year they're giving up in the 2 games. They're doing better on the ground, only giving up 130 per game compared to the 268 a game they gave up last year. But you got to look at who they played, Tarleton and Southern. And then, you know, so we should be able to line up, should be able to build some confidence. This is a game that I'm hoping Wigman can start to get more comfortable in the pocket, start to feel more comfortable with the scheme before we head down to the Swamp next week. So what are you seeing, Seth?
Yeah, I mean, I went back and actually watched a little bit of film on McNeese because I'm a nerd, and they are 2-0. You know, they have beat, you know, peers. They haven't played an A&M yet. What I've seen, like you said, is they predominantly run 2 high safeties, so it's going to be a different look defensively, which is always good to get on film. If you're an offensive guy, after watching film, they may run a lot of 1 high safety like Notre Dame did, but which I would if I was them. But anyway, that's interested to see. I mean, going forward, obviously CW needs to, this is the get right game going into Florida. Need to see it, you know, like he needs to come out and look like the guy from 2023. I'd like to see him run some design quarterback runs, like let Klein call this thing like there is not anything special or different. This is his offense, and let him call it. And that means, and we did do 1 design quarterback run in the red zone, but it actually was a bust up front. It was a counter F play, that crown over, the tackle's supposed to block down. He blocked out.
Yep.
I've seen this a million times with high school kids. You block out on a gap scheme, everything gets jacked up. So then Basantis ends up pulling and blocking out the guy crown over's blocking. Now we've got one lead blocker for 2 line. Anyway, it's a mess. And so and so he did. But if that had been blocked properly, I think he would have scored.
Well,
Anyway,
and I think we talked about it, Seth. I don't think any of us expect Wigman to be a Dak Prescott when he was at Mississippi State in the Dan Mullen offense where he ran it 20 times a game. But if we could get 6 design runs, maybe a couple scrambles on pass plays, 8 to 10 runs by that quarterback, all of a sudden now I think the offense looks a lot more like what we saw at Kansas State.
And I would encourage, and I know you got to protect yourself and all that, but I mean, he's not the slowest dude on the field. It's not Drew Bledsoe or Peyton Manning back there trying to run. It's to call it way back to some really big, slow quarterbacks. But there were several times when he threw a ball down the field where he had plenty of meat on the bone to just take off. And to me, I know he's an NFL guy and he thinks I need to throw the ball and make it right with the throw. But like, if using your legs will sometimes help you get your mojo back, and then on top of that, when defenses start worrying about you in the passing game taking off because they were so aggressive on the ends, it was an A-gap release. We're not talking about like having to run around the defense Johnny football style. Yeah. We're talking about a double team on a 1D tackle left in the middle of the field. You can pick either A-gap and take off.
Yeah.
If you do that and they start having to spy you with somebody, like that's one less guy in coverage, that's one less guy blitz, it makes everything better if that's a threat. I'd love to see that. We need a wide receiver to step up. I mean, this is a great game where you can finally get a little confidence, some wide fairways, so to speak. You start busting your driver down the middle. Okay, I feel pretty good about this, to use a golf analogy. Bussy, I need to see his training wheels taken fully off, okay? Like, this guy needs to be out there. We saw his little bit of slipperiness on the punt return game. The jet sweep that they did give him, coached a lot of jet sweep in my day. They snapped the ball way too early. Everything was out of sync. A defensive lineman,
you got to get him past
that.
The timing's got to be so that he can get past that edge rusher before he even knows what happens. Otherwise,
you're
not going to win it because that edge
blows up your too early.
Yeah.
It's simple as that. And there was something there. Like, I would have loved to have seen if that was executed properly. It wasn't blocked like it's going to be a touchdown, but he had his space to go run. I mean, it was there. Just to be quite frank, just like if we come out here and win this game 27-3, that's a failure. This needs to be a bloodletting. No offense, McNeese, sorry, but also, like, there was a massive amount of recruits at that Notre Dame game.
Yep.
And from all the intel I've gotten, the defensive recruits are chomping at the bit, and the offensive recruits are scared to death. They're like, I don't know about this place.
Well, that's why, unfortunately, we're in the position we're in with receivers, because the last 3 or 4 years, the receivers looked at Jimbo's offense and said, not sure I want to play in that. So
that's right.
Yeah. So, Mark, what are you seeing on the defense or the offensive side of McNeese against our defense of Notre Dame?
Look, I mean, this is McNeese is a completely different roster than it was last year. They didn't win hardly anything. They've really turned their roster over. I think they're really more of a defensive team. I think if they're going to be competitive in their league, it's going to run through their defense. Like you said, they have a legit linebacker who's already got like 30-something tackles in 2 games. But offensively, I don't see anything that scares us. Again, if this team scores 10 points, it's got to be that they scored a touchdown late in mop-up time. I think we can shut this team out. I think barring a turnover, they don't get a field goal. I mean, this is a team we can dominate, and we should.
Well, the good thing about our defense is that our starting safety, he's not one of them that should be banged up because he was out after the 3rd play of the game. So he's well rested. But, yeah, I agree with you. In the little bit I watched, it looked like McNeese still hasn't even settled on a quarterback. They were kind of rotating, trying to figure out who their guy is, not really confident in any of them. So,
we should see all of them Saturday.
That would be really good for our defense. That would be, yeah. All right. Well, my prediction for this week's game, is I've got a 52-10 game. I do think we give up a touchdown late just because Elko, like we talked about earlier, Seth, in a game against Notre Dame, you're not going to be able to get any freshman young kids in that you're trying to get live action for. So this is a game that maybe in the fourth quarter we get some kids out there that are young and McNeese gets them one late. But I got 52-10. I really think this is a game that we can build some confidence with Wigman, with the passing game, with the receivers. But my pick for player of the game this week is going to be that tight end, Trey Watson. I think that this week is a game that we start really figuring out that we're still looking for that number one receiver. And I don't think Trey Watson's going to be our number one receiving target. But if we start utilizing him, that may free up some of those outside guys. So.
And I think you're right on that. And Connor's got to learn to run the RPO because there's some place for him there in the RPO game, and Connor's not used to it yet. I think it's something that now after seeing it on film, he's going to see it like, maybe I shouldn't have just given the ball right there. Maybe I should have pulled it and thrown it to that wide open guy in the flat. And he'll see it on film and he'll make the corrections.
Yeah.
I worry about this game.
Go ahead.
I worry about this game because Notre Dame hype, they played power. It was too tight. Now it's McNeese State. They're right across the line there, and they were over last year. And if the players will come out and play like they've got to have a blowout and they've got to win every snap, and Wegman is improved, then I can see us winning, 49-10, giving up a late touchdown. But if for some reason the offense struggles early, this is going to be ugly, and the Texags board will be on fire. But I really feel like this is a game that we could play a lot of people. We can dominate the game. I think that's what we should do. And the idea is to find some new guys that didn't get to play against Notre Dame that can contribute against Florida and get everybody else comfortable in these systems. This new offense, it's a brand new offensive system and basically a brand new defensive system. We cannot forget this is a first-year coaching staff. And I think we get a little bit more comfortable. We just get a little bit better, blow McNeese out. Let's not let the last taste in our mouth be the Notre Dame game. That's a step forward and figure out a way to go to the swamp and beat a Florida team that their season could be riding on that game. Yeah, honestly.
True. I guess I'll go. My prediction is 58-3 A&M. I tend to be more positive on things until they break me again, like usual. I think they'll get a field goal or something late against the walk-ons, but I think Elko would absolutely shoot some bullets just to hold the touchdown from happening if he has to. I will say a couple things that I forgot to mention. I do watch 90% offense, but in the 10% of defense I watched, Bryce Anderson, big height. Him and Connor Wigman are very similar. Big height coming into the season. Both are these, returners. Both really did not play well. Bryce Anderson did not play well in run support. He looked like a corner playing safety. He did not come up and tackle. And I know watching Elko's defenses, that is not going to fly.
Nope.
And so I tell
that's
you,
why Antonio Johnson was so good.
Yeah,
exactly. He did not look like Antonio. Antonio Johnson was a linebacker once it turned into a run. I mean, that dude was an extra hat in
He's
the
a
box.
headhunter, no doubt.
And Bryce Anderson looked like I said, he looked like corner. He looked like corner trying to tackle a big old running back. And if Brooks went out early, remember, I think Brooks is going to be a dude. He's not like I think Brooks is a downhill Antonio Johnson style player. And I tell you, Theo Ratcliffe came in number 3. I didn't know much about him. He's a transfer from, I'm pretty sure, San Diego State as well, or one of the California schools like Trey Watson. And he looked like he had 3-foot long arms, like what you want to say to have.
The kid's tall and long.
He was not afraid to come downhill and get involved.
He did his.
I'm telling you, there's a situation I see going forward that Ratcliffe and Brooks might be your starting safeties if Anderson don't pull his big boy pants up and go make some tackles.
And here's the deal: like you got to compliment Ratcliffe because here he is. I'm sure everybody wants to be the starter, right? And he didn't get that. He didn't get that nod. And he could have pouted, he could have sulked. And as soon as Brooks came out, he was like, here's my opportunity. And he came in and played well.
We don't feel
to him.
Yeah, that's right. Him and the center both. I mean, that's guys that you gotta. I mean, that's why you gotta have depth too. Because that kind of stuff happens all the time. But yeah, I'm very interested to see the safety dynamic moving forward as well. And then from a similar perspective, I do believe that, and he did it at K-State last year. I could see Klein starting to put in some packages, for either Henderson or Reed, whichever one they think is the next best option. Yeah, and that's how you get a guy real live reps, but you also have some of his QB run stuff, maybe red zone, stuff like that. He did it with Avery Johnson last year too, at Kansas State. They started working in Avery Johnson late, and because he was a different guy than Will Howard. He was real fast. Will Howard's a big dude. He's quick too, but Avery Johnson's a different kind of quick. And some of the stuff they did with him, I mean, it was interesting to see. And I would like to see, I think we're going to see that obviously in the McNeese game, but I would be very interested to see going into the Florida game if that doesn't start happening in some real situations as well. And the other side is now you've got a guy ready to play. You know what I mean? Like you get a guy in some packages. Let's say Connor does get hit again and has to come out of a game for real. Now you got a guy not going in cold turkey, and the only reps he's ever seen is McNeese. That's the idea behind that anyway, I think. I think it's a really good way to play it. So that's what I would love to see as well going forward is some of that package stuff used with some of the backups and and see what the safety.
And I'll be honest with you, Seth, that's how you try to, in this transfer happy world, man, that's how you try to keep some of those young kids engaged and involved, because here's the deal. I think if we're being honest, Reed's sitting there watching to see what happens with Wigman. Because if Wigman comes back for a fourth year, I don't know Reed personally. Maybe he loves A&M and he never wants to leave, and he's that rare, loyal guy. But the reality is in 2024, there's a good chance Wigman has to come back for a fourth year. Reed goes find somewhere he can play right now. And
Vanderbilt made a hard run at Reed. He's from Nashville area. They sent him stupid money in the NIL world, and he took it. He took less to stay here. So I don't know if that's going to happen twice. You know what I mean? Like that's
well, and I was excited watching Reed in that bowl game, and he just looks like electricity in a bottle, just ready to get loose.
He's out like the fat kid in dodgeball if he don't get a chance this year. So.
All right, guys.
Well, I don't know if we could get Marcel Reed out in dodgeball 3-on-1. I don't think we could get him out.
Yeah, I don't. My arm's not what it used to be, and even when it used to be, I don't know if I could get him out. But
yeah.
Well, I appreciate y'all jumping on here. This is episode 2, the preview of the McNeese game this week. If any of us can help you with any of your insurance needs, I know open enrollment for healthcare is coming up, and I know we'd all be glad to help you. I'm in Hallsville, Seth's in Gilmer, and Mark's in Carthage. So feel free to reach out to any of us. Thanks for listening, and Giga Mags.
Yeah.